Hello, I'm going to be lurking. Does he need a nap? Well, here's hoping that this is calm and, honestly, some of the language would be boring enough where it'll help you sleep. We're on book 13. Okay, so I remember what I used to do with my old schedule was I would stream Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Those are 5 days. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep those same 5 days, but what I really did enjoy doing every Sunday was reading a nice book. And the first book we read was The Great Gatsby, and we made it all the way through. And then after that, we have started on Homer's The Iliad and the Odyssey. And according to this version, we made it 214 pages in before all the trouble started with the laptop and everything like that. So, I was kind of wrestling with whether or not I wanted to continue with the Iliad, or if I just wanted to jump to the Odyssey and say screw it, or if I just wanted to throw that book down altogether because I have the book that I was going to read picked out next. In the end, I've decided, I do have all the VODs, almost positive, I have all the VODs uploaded of the Iliad so far. So I figured people could still go and listen if they wanted to. But what I also remembered right before the laptop trouble was this version of the book right here. Got this on Amazon. It looked very nice, very sleek. I enjoy having like a hardcover book to flip through when I'm reading. It's just a preference. Translated by Samuel Butler. Now, I don't know Greek. I don't know ancient languages or anything like that. I don't know specifically what Homer said when he wrote this, or when whoever Homer is wrote this, right? We don't even know if Homer was Homer. We don't know if Shakespeare was Shakespeare. What I do know is that reading Samuel Butler's translation, his take on this, no matter how accurate it may be, it didn't pass the vibe check. We'll just say that. I don't want to disparage translators. I don't want to do any of that. Shakespeare was Klingon. There you go. Perfect. Good to know. But yes, I wasn't a fan. I wasn't a fan of the translation. Then we found a different version of it, and I'm going to see if I can't find it again, but it's on the web, so I might just be reading from there. So let's see. Right. Oh, no. Okay. And then the worst part was looking for a version that wasn't by Samuel Butler, because every link you click is like, oh look, this is by Samuel Butler. It's like the most widespread version of it. And just not my favorite. Really not my favorite. Okay. So poetryandtranslation.com has a version by A.S. Klein. Copyright 2009. And we even have, like, if I still have them, clips of differences in the translations. And I definitely read it back to back for different people, getting their opinion. And pretty much everybody I asked was either like, there's not much of a difference, or Klein's version is just more dynamic. It's easier to listen to, and it was much easier for me to read. I don't know much more than that. It was just the feeling of it. So we're going to go ahead and get to Book 13, which I believe, just let me double check this. Yes, Book 13. So that's where we'll start from. Book 13, Homer the Iliad, translated by A.S. Klein. Poseidon rouses the Iantes. Now, when Zeus had brought Hector and his Trojans as far as the ships, he left them and their enemies to ceaseless toil and suffering, and turned his glowing eyes to distant lands, those of the Thracian horsemen, the Mysians who fought hand to hand, the proud Hippomolgi who drink mare's milk, and the Abi who love justice most. He gave Troy not another glance, little dreaming that some god might help the Trojans or the Greeks. But Poseidon, the earth shaker, kept no blind watch. He sat on the summit peak of wooded Samothrace, and gazed spellbound at the progress of the war. From there all Ida could be viewed, the city of Priam and the Greek ships. Having risen from the sea, he sat there pitying the Greeks as the Trojans overcame them, filled with indignation against Zeus. Then he strode swiftly down the rocky slopes, while the high peaks and the woodland trembled under the god's feet as he passed. He took 3 strides, and the 4th achieved his goal, Aegea, where his great palace built in the depths of the sea stands gold and gleaming, unfading forever. There he harnessed his swift-paired team to his chariot, horses with hooves of bronze and flowing golden manes. Clothing himself in gold, he seized his fine gold whip, mounted his chariot, and drove out across the waves. Knowing their lords, sea creatures from the deeps played beneath him on every side, and the ocean in delight parted before him. Onwards he sped, the bronze axle unwetted, and the prancing horses brought him to the Achaean fleet. Pay for the audiobooks? Hey, I can do that. There is a broad cavern in the depths halfway between Tenedos and rocky Imbros. There the earth-shaker halted, loosed his horses, and fed them their ambrosial fodder. He hobbled their legs with unbreakable gold restraints, so they would stay till his return while he approached the Greek camp. There the Trojans, like a storm of wind or fire, were sweeping furiously on behind Hector, son of Priam, with scarcely a cry, thinking to take the ships and slaughter the best of the Greeks beside them. But Poseidon, earth-shaker who wraps the earth about, emerging from the depths in the guise of Calchas, with tireless voice, roused the Argives. First he spoke to the ever-eager Iantes. "You two could save the army if you filled your thoughts with glory and not the chill of defeat. Elsewhere the bronze-greaved Greeks will stand fast, and I have little fear of the powerful arms of those Trojans who have swarmed across the wall. But I am deeply afraid that here evil may befall us, for that madman Hector leads them on like a blazing brand, he who boasts he is a scion of mighty Zeus. Let a god only plant this one thought in your minds, to stand fast and rally the rest. Then you might drive him from the swift ships for all his fury, even though the Olympian himself spurs him on." I'm also going to have to remember all the voices that I did. They're going to sound very different compared to the VODs. For anyone who's just joining the reading, as in this is the first reading stream you've seen, I do have a VOD channel linked to my Twitch channel, I believe, still. And I'm hoping that I did, in fact, upload all of the previous VODs with the previous chapters. And if you wanted to hear another book, we also did Great Gatsby. With that, the earth-shaker who wraps the earth about touched them with his staff, making their limbs feel light, giving new strength to their feet and hands. Then, like a hawk in the air, poised high over some sheer rock face that sweeps down over the plain, chasing its winged quarry, Poseidon Earth-shaker vanished swiftly from their sight. Oileus' son, the fleet of foot, was the first of 2 Iantes to know the god. He turned at once to the son of Telamon. Ajax, that was not Calchas, diviner and seer, not him by the shape of calf and heel as he left us, it was one of the gods of Olympus, in his likeness, urging us to fight on by the ships. The gods are plainly known. Now my heart is filled with fire for war and conflict, and my hands and feet feel new strength." Telamonian Ajax replied, "I too feel new strength in feet and hands, and a fresh eagerness to grasp the spear and fight, even to battle Hector, Priam's son, in his fury." Poseidon inspires the Greeks. So they talked, savoring the joy of battle the god had put in their hearts, while Poseidon roused those Greeks recovering at the sterns of the ships. They were dropping from exhaustion, grieved at the sight of the Trojans swarming across the wall. They gazed at them with tear-filled eyes, seeing no hope of escape. But the Earth-shaker passed lightly through the ranks, inspiring the best battalions. First he stirred Teucer and Leitus, Peneleos, Thoas, Deipris, Meriones, and Antilochus, lords of the loud war-cry, and addressed them with winged words, spurred them on. "Shame on you, Argive weaklings! You I trusted to save the ships. If you shirk the fight, then the day of Trojan victory has indeed arrived. What a wonderful sight it is, a shocking thing I never thought to see. Trojans among the ships, men no better than panic-stricken hinds in the woods, cowardly and lacking fight, a prey to panthers, wolves, and jackals. That's how little in the past, at least, Trojans enjoyed facing the arms and power of the Greeks. But now, far from their city, they fight by the hollow ships, all because of our leaders' intransigence, and the cowardice of those who, because of a quarrel, would rather die than defend the fleet. Even if the warrior son of Atreus, Imperial Agamemnon, caused it, by offending swift-footed Achilles, it is not for us to shirk the fight. Let us atone for the fault, and quickly. Good men seek amends. You among the best of the army do badly skulking here. I could forgive some weakling for hesitating to fight, but your indolence angers me. Such slackness will bring greater ruin. Do you not fear shame and reproach? Now true war is waged, and Hector of the loud war-cry, feeling his power, has shattered the barred gates and brings the fight to the ships." Hi, Didi. Yes, Illiad. Yes, I'm finally getting back into it. So Poseidon, who wraps the earth around, roused the Greeks with his words, till the warriors crowded round the two Iantes, a show of strength to deter Ares or Athene, goader of armies. The pick of the brave stood there to await noble Hector and the Trojans, a hedge of spears, serried ranks of overlapping shields, helm touching helm, man beside man. And the horsehair crests of the gleaming helms brushed each other as they turned their heads, so close-packed were the men, while their spears, brandished boldly, crossed and firm in purpose, they yearned for the fight. The death of Amphimachus. Now Hector led the Trojans forward in close formation. As a boulder that some river swollen by winter rain pries from the brow of a hill, undermining the heavy stone's support, so that it bounds high in the air and speeds on its way through the echoing woods, till it reaches level ground, then comes to rest despite its weight. So Hector among the Greek huts and ships threatened to reach the sea, killing as he went, till he met the closed ranks of the Achaeans where he came to a halt. The Greeks facing lunged at him with their double-edged spear blades and swords, pushing him back till he staggered and gave ground. Then he called aloud to the Trojans with a piercing cry, "Trojans, Lycians, and you Dardanians who love close combat, stand fast. The Greeks, though they form a wall, will not hold me back for long. They will give way before my spear if the greatest of gods, the Thunderer, Hera's lord, is truly at my back." With this he roused every man's strength and spirit, including that of Deiphobus, Priam's son, who strode to the front, his courage high, covering himself with his round shield, stepping forward lightly. Now Meriones launched his gleaming spear, which hit that same round oxhide shield, but failed to penetrate. The long shaft broke from the socket as Deiphobus thrust the shield away from his body, fearful of warlike Meriones' blade. That warrior slipped back into the ranks, angry at his failure and the loss of his broken spear, and set off along the line of Greek huts and ships to fetch a long spear left in his hut. The rest fought on amidst the endless cries of battle. Teucer, son of Telamon, killed first, slaying Imbrius the spearman, son of Mentor, breeder of horses. Imbrius lived in Pedaeum before the Danaans landed, married to Medesicast, a natural daughter of Priam. But when the Greeks arrived in their curved ships, he returned to Ilium and was honored among the Trojans, living in Priam's palace and treated by him as one of his children. Now Teucer, son of Telamon, pierced him beneath the ear with a thrust of his long lance, which he then dragged free. Imbrius fell like a tall ash tree, a landmark topping some summit, till the bronze axe brings it low, and its soft leaves lie in the dust. He fell, and his bronze-inlaid armor rang around him. Now Teucer rushed to strip the armor from him, but Hector sent a gleaming spear towards him in full flight. Teucer, his gaze alert, barely avoided the bronze spear blade, but it struck brave Amphimachus, Tietus' son and grandson of Actor, in the chest as he entered the fray. He fell with a thud, and his armor clanged above him. Hector ran in to tear the close-fitting helm from Amphimachus' head, and as he did so, Ajax lunged with his gleaming spear, but failed to lodge the blade in Hector's flesh, sheathed as it was in heavy bronze. Yet it struck his shield boss, and Ajax thrust him back with all his strength, till he retreated from the bodies, and the Greeks dragged them away. Then Stichius and noble Menestheus, the Athenian generals, carried Amphimachus' corpse behind the Greek lines, while the two Iantes dragged Imbrius away, their hearts filled with reckless courage. Like two lions that snatch a goat from before the dogs, and carry it in their jaws through thick brush, holding it high off the ground, so the two warriors held Imbrius' corpse aloft, and stripped him away the armor. Angered by Amphimachus' death, the son of Oileus severed the head from the tender neck, and with a swing of his arm sent it whirling like a ball through the ranks, to fall in the dust at Hector's feet. Poseidon rouses Idomeneus. Now Poseidon was heartsore when his grandson Amphimachus fell in the dread encounter, and he passed along the huts and ships to arouse the Greeks while he planned sorrow for the Trojans. There he met the famed spearman Idomeneus, who had just left a warrior lately come from the field, nursing a sword cut across the knee. His comrades had brought him in, and Idomeneus was on his way to his hut, having left orders for the healers before returning to the fight. Poseidon spoke to him, disguising his voice as that of Thoas, Andraemon's son, lord of Aetolians in Pleuron and lofty Calydon, and honored by his people like a god. Idomeneus, counselor of the Cretans, where now are those threats we Greeks aimed at the Trojans? Thoas, replied the Cretan commander, none here are to blame. As far as I can see, we are all adept in war, and free of cowardly fear, and not one of us has panicked and fled the field. It must be the will of Almighty Zeus that we Greeks should die here far from Argos and unremembered. Yet you were always steady in battle, and rallied others when you saw them shirking. Do so now, Thoas. Rouse every man. Idomeneus, answered Poseidon, earth shaker, may the man who shirks the fight today never return home from Troy, but lie here sport for the dogs. Seize your weapons and follow me. We too must toil together and hope we can be of help. Even the worst of warriors fight better side by side, while we two are a match for the very best. Nurse you and rouse you? I will try. When the text calls for it, of course. Welcome, Dr. Ham. I appreciate you joining me. Idomeneus and Meriones rejoined the fight. With that, Poseidon re-entered the conflict, a god among men, while Idomeneus made his way to his sturdy hut, donned his fine armor, seized a pair of spears, and set forth swift as the lightning bolt Zeus grasps in his hand and hurls from gleaming Olympus, as an omen for humankind. And the bronze on the warrior's chest as he ran flashed bright as the lightning. Not far from the hut he found Meriones, his noble squire. There to retrieve the bronze spear he sought, and Idomeneus questioned him. Meriones, my nephew, Molus' son, my dearest comrade, why do you leave the field? Are you wounded, feeling the hurt from some blade, or am I summoned? For my part, I've no wish to stay here. I'd rather fight. Discreetly, Meriones answered, Idomeneus, counselor of the bronze-clad Cretans, I seek a spear, hoping to find one in our huts. I shattered my last on reckless Deiphobus' shield. You will find 20 spears leaning against the wall by the bright entrance, Idomeneus the Cretan general replied. Trojan spears from the ones I kill. I prefer to fight man to man, so I win spears and helms, bossed shields and gleaming breastplates. Discreetly, Meriones answered, I have a pile of Trojan weapons in my black ship in the hut, though yours are nearer. I too am not forgetful of glory and stand in the front rank, where glory is won when battle is joined. Perhaps others of the bronze-clad Greeks are ignorant of my skill, but you, I know, have seen it for yourself. I know your courage, Idomeneus the Cretan general replied. No need to remind me. If we chose the finest men for an ambush, say where bravery is most needed, no one could ignore your courage and strength. An ambush soon separates brave men from cowards. The coward continually changes color. Anxiety stops him sitting still. He shifts his weight from side to side. His heart beats fast as he thinks of dying, and his teeth chatter together. But the brave man never changes color, and taking his place is free from paralyzing fear, praying only to begin the fight at once. If you were struck by arrow or spear in the heat of battle, it would not be in the neck or back from behind. You would take it in your chest or belly, as you ran into the maw of men at the front. But come now, we must not linger here chattering like children and incur reproach. Go to my hut and get a sturdy spear. With this, Meriones, peer of swift Ares, retrieved a bronze spear from the hut and followed Idomeneus, eager for battle. As Ares, killer of men, and Panic, his son, powerful and unconquerable, who follows him, routing the bravest warrior, armed themselves for war, and set out from Thrace to join the Ephyri or the proud Phlegians, and bring one or the other glory, turning a deaf ear to the other. So Meriones and Idomeneus, leaders of the men, set out for battle, clad in gleaming bronze. And Meriones addressed the son of Deucalion. Idomeneus, where will you join the lines, on the right, in the center, or perhaps on the left? There I would think the long-haired Greeks are most at risk. Idomeneus, the Cretan leader, replied, Others can defend the center. The Iantes and Teucer, the best of our archers, are good men in the tight place. They will give a good man in a tight place. They will give Hector, son of Priam, his fill of fighting, however keen he is, and mighty. You will find it hard, despite his fury, to conquer their strength and dauntless arms, and set fire to the swift ships, unless Zeus himself tosses a blazing brand among them. Great Telamonian Ajax will never yield to mortal man that eats bread made of Demeter's grain, and can be cut by a bronze blade or crushed by mighty boulders. He would even stand against Achilles, breaker of armies, face to face, though in fleetness of foot Achilles is unrivaled. So as you say, let us make for the left, and discover swiftly whether we shall win glory or grant it to another. Meriones, peer of swift Ares, then led the way, till they reached the ranks at the place Idomeneus pointed out. I wonder what happens in this next section. Idomeneus kills Asius. Bless indeed. When the Trojans saw Idomeneus, fierce as flame, and his squire, both clad in ornate armor, they shouted to each other through the ranks, and attacked as one. The strife of battle swirled about the ship's sterns, and in a storm of dust, like the dense clouds stirred from the roads by shrill gusts on a windy day, the battalions clashed together, eager to put one another to the sword. The killing field bristled with long, flesh-cutting spears, and eyes were dazzled by the flash of bronze from glittering helms, burnished breastplates, and gleaming shields as the armies met. A man would need a heart of steel to rejoice at the sight of such conflict and not be saddened. Now the two mighty sons of Cronos, divided in their aims, were creating sad conflict for mortal men. Zeus wanted victory for Troy and Hector, to endorse fleet-footed Achilles, yet had no wish for the Greeks to meet utter ruin on the Trojan shore, wanting only to humor Thetis and her proud son. Poseidon, meanwhile, urged the Greeks on, leaving the grey sea secretly to steal among them, for indignant against Zeus he was grieved to see them fall before the Trojans. Both may have sprung from one stock, one parentage, but Zeus was the elder and the wiser. So Poseidon took care not to help openly, but in human guise roused the Argive army. And now the two knotted the cords, and drew taut the net of mighty conflict and dark war over both the armies, a net none could break or unknot, that undid many a man. Idomeneus called out to the Danaans, and, though his hair was flecked with grey, leapt upon the Trojans and routed them. He killed Othryoneus, Troy's ally from Cabesus, who had lately responded to news of war. He had asked for Priam's loveliest daughter Cassandra, offering no bride price, but promising to drive the Greeks by force from Troy. Priam agreed and promised, and trusting in that promise, Othryoneus fought. Now Idomeneus aimed and hurled his bright spear, striking him as he strode forward proudly. The bronze corslet failed to save him, and the blade pierced him square in the belly. He fell with a thud to the ground, and Idomeneus mocked, "Othryoneus, if only you could accomplish all you promised Priam, you would have his daughter as promised, and be the happiest of mortal men. Yet we could promise the same, and grant you the loveliest of Atreides' daughters. Only follow us and sack the great city of Ilium, and we will bring her from Argos to wed you. Come now and follow me, so we can agree this marriage by the seagoing ships. You will find us reasonable about the price." With this, Idomeneus the warrior took the corpse by the foot and dragged it through the throng. But Asius, on foot, his two great horses breathing at his back, restrained by his charioteer, strode to the rescue, eager to hurl his spear at Idomeneus. The latter, too quick for him, caught him with a thrust of his spear in the throat, beneath the chin, and drove the point right through. Asius fell like an oak, poplar, or towering pine, felled in the mountains by the woodsman's sharp axe to make ships' timbers. He lay outstretched before his horses, groaning and clutching at the blood-stained dust. His charioteer, terror-stricken, lost what wits he had left, scared to turn the horses and escape the enemy, and Antilochus coolly aimed and struck his body with a spear. The bronze corslet failed to save him, and the blade pierced him square in the belly. Gasping, he fell headlong from the fine chariot, and Antilochus, son of noble Nestor, drove the horses out of the Trojans into the Greek lines. Savage. Now Deiphobus, grieved over Asius, approached Idomeneus and let fly his gleaming lance. But Idomeneus, eyeing him cautiously, dodged the bronze spear, covered by the round shield he always carried. Cunningly worked with bright bronze and oxhide, it was fitted with two crossbars, and crouching behind this he watched the spear pass by, clanging against the shield as it did so. Yet Deiphobus's missile did not leave his hand in vain, striking a general Hypsenor, Hippasus' son, under the midriff in the liver, loosening his knees. Deiphobus gave a terrifying shout, crying, "Now Asius does not lie unavenged, and though he goes to meet Hades, the warden of the gate, his heart will rejoice I send him an escort." The Argives were grieved at his words of triumph that stirred resentment nowhere more deeply than in Antilochus' fierce spirit. Nevertheless, he in turn did not fail his fallen comrade, but ran to protect his friend, covering him with his shield. Then two loyal companions, Mecistius, son of Aeacus, and noble Alistair, lifted and carried Hypsenor, groaning deeply, to the hollow ships. Idomeneus meanwhile fought on in his... Idomeneus meanwhile fought on in his fury, eager to send some Trojan to the darkness, or fall himself, fending off a Greek defeat. Now the warrior Alcalphus, dear son of Zeus-nurtured Ascetius, was son-in-law to Anchises, having wed Hippodamia, his eldest daughter, whom her royal parents loved deeply, not least for her peerless beauty, her womanly skills, and wisdom sufficient to attract the finest in all Troy. The man now fell to Idomeneus, with Poseidon's aid. The god cast a spell over Alcalphus's bright eyes and froze his noble limbs so he could neither turn to flee nor escape the spear. As he stood rooted to the spot, like a column or a tall leafy tree, Idomeneus the brave struck him square on the chest with a spear thrust, splitting his bronze armor, which had till then protected him from harm, but now rang harshly as the blade tore it. With a thud he fell, and the spear butt quivered while the point remained lodged in his beating heart, till mighty Ares quelled it. Idomeneus shouted fiercely, "Deiphobus, are we quit now of your boasting, with 3 men dead to your 1? You are god-possessed. Then stand and face me now, and meet a son of Zeus on your own soil. Zeus made his son Minos king of Crete, and Minos in turn fathered peerless Deucalion, who begot me, lord of many men in our spacious isle. And I was brought here by ship to be your bane, and your father's, and all in Troy." Deiphobus, at this, debated whether to give ground and call on a brave comrade for support, or try the thing himself. He thought the best course was to seek out Aeneas, and found him standing idle at the rear, since Aeneas was angered at great Priam because he showed him little honor, though he was among the finest warriors. Deiphobus spoke to him in winged words. "Aeneas," it's Aeneas, I remember this. "Aeneas, counselor of Trojans, if you care for your brother-in-law, you must save him now. Come, rescue Alcathous, who was family and reared you as a child in the palace. He has fallen to that great spearman Idomeneus." Deiphobus kills Ascalaphus. His words stirred Aeneas' heart in his breast, and his mind set on conflict. He sought out Idomeneus. But he in turn was not to be frightened like some child. Rather, he waited like a wild boar in the mountains, trusting in his own strength, one challenged by the noisy crowd of huntsmen in some remote place, whose back bristles, whose eyes blaze fire, whetting his tusks, ready to take on dogs and men. So Idomeneus, the famous spearman, waited for Aeneas, hastening to aid the Trojans, and gave no ground, but called to his friends Ascalaphus, Apharius, Deipyrus, Meriones, and Antilochus, battle-hardened warriors. He spoke winged words to urge them on. "Here, friends, to my aid. Alone I dread fleet-footed Aeneas' charge. He is a mighty slayer of men in battle, with the flower of youth upon him, filled with its strength. Were we matched in age as we are in fury, then either of us might gain victory." At this, hearts beating as one, they closed ranks around him, crouched behind sloped shields. For his part, Aeneas too summoned his friends, Deiphobus, Paris, and noble Agenor, fellow leaders of the Trojans. The army followed as the flock follows the ram from the pasture to the stream, gladdening the shepherd's heart, as Aeneas' heart was gladdened seeing the warriors massed behind them. Then the long spears clashed together in a struggle over Alcathous' corpse, and the bronze breastplates rang loud as they thrust at one another in the crowd. 2 brave men, above all, Aeneas and Idomeneus, peers of Ares, strove eagerly to pierce each other's flesh with the merciless bronze. First Aeneas cast at Idomeneus, who, eyeing him carefully, dodged the spear, which quivered, its point in the earth, hurled in vain from that powerful hand. Then Idomeneus threw, striking Oenomaus square in the belly, shattering the bronze plate and disemboweling him. He lay in the dust, clutching the earth. Idomeneus drew his long-shadowed spear from the wound, yet failed to strip away the rest of the armor, assailed by a hail of missiles. He was no longer as nimble in following up his throw or avoiding another's. In a close fight, he kept pitiless death at bay, but was too slow on his feet to retreat swiftly. So, as he fell back step by step, Deiphobus, who nursed resentment against him, hurled his gleaming spear. For a second time he missed Idomeneus, hitting Ascalaphus in Ialius' son, the heavy spear entering his shoulder. Down in the dust he went, clutching the ground. Mighty Ares of the echoing cry was unaware his son had fallen. He was still seated with the other immortals on the summit of Olympus beneath the golden clouds, kept back from the war by Zeus's command. The death of Adamas. Now they clashed in close combat over Ascalaphus, and Deiphobus tore the shining helmet from his head. But Meriones leapt, like a god of war, at Deiphobus, piercing his arm with his spear, so the plumed helmet fell from his hand and rang on the ground. Like a vulture, Meriones hopped in and plucked the heavy spear from the upper arm, and then dodged back among his friends. Polites, wrapping his arm round his brother Deiphobus's waist, led him from the thick of the fighting towards his inlaid chariot at the rear, where the charioteer waited with the swift horses. They carried him, groaning deeply, to the city, fresh blood streaming from the wound, while those he left fought on, amidst ceaseless tumult. Excuse me. Now Aeneas charged at Apharius, Calator's son, striking him in the throat with a sharp spear as he turned towards him. His head slumped to one side as the shield and helmet crushed him, and death that slays the spirit engulfed him. Meanwhile Antilochus, seizing his chance, leapt at Thun, whose back was turned, slashing at him, severing the spinal cord, slicing clean through, so Thun fell backwards in the dust, his hands stretched toward his close comrades. Antilochus, though, ran forwards and, warily, while the circling Trojans threatened to pierce his wide gleaming shield, started to strip away the shoulder armor. But Poseidon, Earth-shaker, guarded Nestor's son closely, even amongst the shower of missiles, and no deadly bronze tip passed Antilochus's defenses to graze his tender flesh. But Antilochus, though ringed by enemies, always ranged against them, forever brandishing and shaking his restless spear, ready to hurl it at his target or challenge a man in close combat. Now as he aimed again into the ranks, Adamas, son of Asius, saw him, and charging in, struck him square on the shield with his keen spear blade. But dark-haired Poseidon, unwilling to grant that spear a life, robbed it of its true force, and half the shaft fell to the ground, while the other half lodged in the shield like a charred stump. Adamas shrank back into his crowd of comrades, dodging fate, but Meriones pursued him and hurled his spear, catching the man midway between crotch and navel, where Ares gives greatest pain to wretched mortals. True. There the spear struck, and Adamas doubled over the deep-set shaft, writhed around like a bullock that mountain herdsmen have roped and drag along by force against its will. For a little while he struggled, till Meriones reached him and dragged his spear from the wound. Then darkness filled Adamas's eyes. What a way to go. Menelaus kills Pisander. Now in close combat, Helenus struck Deipyrus on the temple with the Thracian longsword, tearing away his helm, which fell to the ground, where an Achaean warrior scooped it up as it rolled at the warrior's feet. So the darkness of night shrouded Deipyrus' eyes. Menelaus, of the loud war cry, the son of Atreus, grieved at the sight, strode menacingly towards Helenus, the noble warrior brandishing his sharp spear as Helenus bent his bow. At the same instant both let fly, with spear and arrow. Priam's son hit Menelaus in the chest with his shaft, but the deadly missile glanced from his breastplate. As swiftly as black bean or chickpea leaps from the broad shovel when the winnower wields it in a gust of wind on the wide threshing floor, so did the deadly arrow rebound from the breastplate and fall far off. Sure, but Menelaus struck Helenus on the hand that held the gleaming bow, and the bronze blade pierced through his hand, gouging the wood. Helenus fell back from his friends, dodging fate, his hand trailing by his side, the spear shaft dragging behind. Brave Agenor disengaged the spear from the wound, and bound the hand with a width of twisted wool that his squire carried for his lord to make a sling. Now dark fate led Pisander to attack the great Menelaus, sending him to death at your hands in the heat of battle. As they met, the son of Atreus saw his spear turned aside, while Pisander struck at great Menelaus' shield, failing though to drive the bronze blade through, since the shield resisted, and the shaft broke at the socket. Still, he was filled with joy and hoped for victory, but Atreides drew his silver-studded sword and charged. while behind a shield Pysander clasped his fine bronze axe with its shaft of olive wood long and gleaming. They clashed together. Pysander caught Menelaus on the ridge of his horsehair-crested helm close to the plume, but Menelaus's blow fell on Pysander's forehead at the base of the nose, shattering the bone with a loud crack, so the blood-filled eyeballs leapt from their sockets and fell in the dust at his feet, and he doubled over and fell. Good Lord. Setting his foot on the man's chest, Menelaus stripped off the armor, shouting, "This is how we'll drive you from our ships, rash Trojans, you horse-tamers drunk on the sound of battle, treacherous cowards, never at a loss for our wretchful shameful deeds, like the outrage you committed on me, without respect for Zeus the Thunderer, who made the guest laws, and one day will topple your mighty city. You stole my wife, and crossed the sea with her and a weight of treasure, though you were guests of mine. And now you are keen to spread fire through our sea-going ships and slay the whole Greek army. But keen as you are, you'll be halted. Father Zeus, men say you are greatest in wisdom, above both gods and men, yet you are the cause of this, favoring men of violence, these ungovernable Trojans, who never weary of the din of this evil war. All things sate us, sleep, love, sweet song, and the peerless dance. Of all these surely rather than war a man would seek his fill. Yet these Trojans only seek their fill of battle." With this, glorious Menelaus stripped the corpse of its blood-stained armor, handing it to his friends, then re-entered the front ranks of the fight. Those damn dirty Trojans. The Greeks resist Hector. Once there, Menelaus was charged by Harpalion, son of King Palaemenes, who had followed his dear father to Troy, but was fated never to return to his native land. Closing in, he thrust at Atreides' shield, striking it squarely, but failing to drive the bronze tip through. Glancing back warily, lest any man graze his flesh with a bronze blade, he retreated into the ranks, dodging fate. But as he turned, Meriones let fly a bronze-tipped arrow, striking him on the right buttock, so the arrow passed beneath the bone and into the bladder. He collapsed on the spot, and sinking into the arms of his friends, breathed out his life and lay in the dust like a worm, the dark blood flowing and soaking the ground. The brave Paphlagonians gathered around and lifted him into a chariot. Then, grieving, they took him to sacred Ilium, and his father, weeping, went with them, his sons still unavenged. Darn. Yet Paris was deeply angered by his death, for Harpalion had been his host among the Paphlagonians, and in great wrath he let fly a bronze-tipped arrow. It struck an Achaean, Euchenor, rich and brave, the son of Seer Peleides of Corinth. He set sail for Troy, knowing his fate, since his aged father prophesied he would either die of a fatal illness at home or be slain by the Trojans among the ships. He avoided the pain of the deadly disease and the heavy fine the Greeks would have levied for his absence. But now Paris' shaft struck his jaw, under the ear. His spirit fled swiftly from his corpse, and the dread darkness engulfed him. So the fighting raged like wildfire. But Hector, beloved of Zeus, had no news from the left of the ships where the Argives were killing his troops, and soon would have gained the glory, so mighty a help was Poseidon, who surrounds and shakes the earth, for he added his strength to the Greeks and urged them on. Hector remained where he'd first won through the gate and wall, and broken the close-knit ranks of Danaan shieldmen. There, where the wall was lowest, the ships of Ajax and Protesilaus were breached by the grey sea, and there the chariots and infantry fought most fiercely. The Boeotians, Locrians, Phthians, the brave Epians, and the Ionians, with their long tunics, had labored to halt Hector's attack on the ships, unable to drive back that noble warrior, who came on like a fiery flame. Picked men of Athens were fighting there, led by Menestheus, son of Peteos, with Phaedus, Stichius, and brave Bias. Meges, Phyleus' son, led by the Epeans, with Amphion and Dracius, while the front ranks of the Pythians charged behind Medon and stalwart Podarches. Medon was a natural son of godlike Oileus, and brother to Ajax the Lesser, but lived in Phylis, far from his native land, exiled for killing a kinsman of his stepmother Eriopis, Oileus' wife. Podarches, in turn, was Iphiclus' son and the grandson of Phylacus. These, in full armor, fought in the front ranks of the brave Phthians, defending the ships alongside the Boeotians. Ajax, swift son of Oileus, was inseparable from Ajax the son of Telamon. Just like two wine-dark oxen, that strain at the wooden plow on fallow land, sweat streaming from the base of their horns, held apart by the polished yoke as they slice the furrow till the plow reaches the border of the field, so these two labored close together. Behind Telamon's son his comrades were grouped, mighty men, who would hold his shield when his limbs grew weary or drenched with sweat. But the Locrians stood back behind the brave son of Oileus, having no heart for close fighting, since they lacked the bronze helms with thick horsehair plumes, the round shields and ash spears. They trusted in bows and slings of well-wound sheep's wool, the weapons they brought to Troy, and with these they fired missiles thick and fast, trying to break the Trojan lines. So those in front with their heavy armor grappled with the Trojans led by bronze-clad Hector, while those behind fired from cover, till the Trojans no longer attacked, thrown into confusion. Polydamas gives Hector advice. They might well have retreated in disarray from the ships and huts to windy Troy, if Polydamas had not approached brave Hector, saying, "Hector, you're a hard man to convince. Because some god made you mighty in war, you think you are wisest in council also, but you cannot encompass all things yourself. The gods give one man prowess in battle, another in dance, another in singing and playing the lyre, while Zeus, the far echoer, gives some other man a wise mind, by which others profit and many are saved, himself knowing best. So I will say what I think is best. The battle flares all around you, and brave Trojans this side the wall are either separated from the front or scattered among the ships and outnumbered. Why not call all the leaders back and regroup? Then we could think things through, and decide whether to launch an all-out attack on the bent ships and see if the gods will truly grant us victory, or retreat from the ships unscathed. I fear myself the Greeks may pay us back for yesterday, since they have a man insatiable in war who waits idle by the ships, but who, I think, will not hold back from this fight much longer." Hector appreciated Polydamas's wise words, and swiftly leapt to the ground from his chariot fully armed to give his reply. "Polydamas, keep back the leaders here, while I go to the front. I will be back as soon as I've given them clear orders." So saying, he gave a great shout and ran swiftly through the ranks of the Trojans and their allies, light gleaming from him brightly as if from mountain snow. Hearing Hector's cry, the men rushed toward that point, and gathered round equable Polydamas, the son of Panthos. Meanwhile, Hector was ranging the front, seeking Deiphobus, the great lord Helenus, Adamas son of Asius, and his father, the son of Hyrtacus. He found that even those still alive were not unscathed. 2 lay dead at Argive hands by the sterns of the Greek ships. The other 2 were back inside the city wall, wounded by thrusting and flying spear blade. One leader, however, he did find on the left flank of that grievous conflict, noble Paris, the husband of blonde Helen. He was encouraging his men and urging them on to fight, when Hector arrived to reproach him. "Sinful Paris, so handsome, so mad for women, tell me where Deiphobus is, you seducer, and great lord Helenus, Adamas, his father Asius, and Othryoneus. Tell me before lofty Ilium is ruined utterly, and we go to certain destruction." "Hector," godlike Paris replied, since you choose to blame the blameless, if I ever retreated from a fight, it would not be now, for I was not born an utter coward. From the moment you roused your men to rush the ships, we have held our ground here battling the Greeks, but 3 of the friends you asked after are dead. Of them all only Deiphobus and great Lord Helenus have withdrawn from the fight, wounded by spear blades, one in the arm, the other the hand, yet spared death by the son of Cronus. Lead on then, wherever your heart and spirit urge you, while we shall follow you eagerly. Nor I think will we lack courage, that is, while strength lasts, for no man can fight when his strength is gone, however eager he is for battle. Ajax and Hector exchange words. So Paris placated his brother, and they set out for the front where the noise was loudest, where Cibrionus fought, and peerless Polydamas, Phalcis, Orthaeus, and godlike Polyphides, Palmes, and Ascanius and Morus, the sons of Hippotion, who had arrived with a relieving force from fertile Ascania the previous day, and were now roused by Zeus to war. They advanced like a deadly storm that scours the earth, to the thunder of Father Zeus, and stirs the sea with stupendous roaring, leaving surging waves in its path over the echoing waters, serried ranks of great arched breakers with white foam. So the Trojans in close formation, gleaming with bronze, advanced behind their leaders. Foremost was Hector, son of Priam, and peer of the war god Ares. He held his balanced round shield in front, with its layer of hide and surface of beaten bronze, while the crest of his gleaming helm quivered over his temples. Covered by this shield, he advanced cautiously, probing the enemy battalions on every side, looking for signs of weakness. Yet he could not shake the Achaeans' resolve. Ajax indeed strode forward to challenge him. "Madman, come closer. Are you trying to scare us Greeks away? We too know something of war. It was Zeus's hostile lash we faced. You hope to destroy our fleet, but we have means to defend them. Your well-peopled city will be taken and sacked before ever you capture our ships. As for you, the time is nigh when you'll run, praying to Father Zeus and the other gods that your long-maned horses fly faster than falcons as they carry you back to Troy in a cloud of dust." As he spoke, an eagle flew by on the right, high up in the sky, and seeing the omen, the Achaean army raised a shout of joy. But glorious Hector retorted, "Ajax, you boaster, what foolish words! For my part, as surely as I'd wish to spend my days as the son of aegis-bearing Zeus, with royal Hera for mother, and honored like Athene and Apollo, so surely this day brings evil to you Greeks, one and all. Yes, you too, if you have the courage to stand against my long spear that will tear your lily-white skin. You too will die among them, and your flesh and sinew will glut the dogs of Troy and birds of prey where you lie by the Greek ships." So saying, he led the charge, and the army followed with a deafening roar, as the Trojans took up the cry. The Argives shouted their answer, and summoning their courage, awaited this onslaught by all the pride of Troy. Then the noise of the two armies rose to high heaven, towards Zeus's splendor. And that is the end of Book 13. How long have we been going? We've been going a good 45 minutes. When it comes to reading, it's a good idea to, as I've been trying to do, hydrate, but it's also a very good idea to take a quick little break. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I think we're going to go, since it was 5:05 my time, we're going to take a 15-minute, and I'll be back at 5:20, 6:20, 4:20, 3:20, whatever, 4:20, whatever 20 time zone you happen to be in. Okay. All right. Again, thank you all for listening. We'll be back in a little bit. I'm going to rest my voice. Stick around. I'll be back soon. Hello. Let's fade that out. Or, I didn't really do that all that smoothly, but that's okay. Okay, back from the break. I appreciate everyone's patience for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed the soothing music if you had that on. But yeah, I haven't really... Hello, Josh. Yeah, I haven't really, I haven't read out loud since the laptop broke. You know, since my last reading stream, which is about 3 or so months now. And that happened to be like a 22-page chapter, and that's one of the longer ones, I think, because this next one coming up is only 14. So it was a nice little like, hey, welcome back. You're gonna read a lot right now, and I'm like, okay, cool. But yeah, this one is a bit shorter. I think we'll be able to get it done in about 40 minutes, and that's about when we're going to wind down the stream anyway, because we're gonna keep this Sundays for reading. It's possible that I don't know if I'm going to continue streaming, but I will say that there's a possibility of me joining a friend for more stream, and if I do, here's that. You can join there. He's going to be streaming for a good period of the day. He's a good friend of mine, Keaton, or K-Dude, as some of my viewers have named him, which is great, and he doesn't like it, and that makes it even better. Just call him K-Dude. And by he doesn't like it, he's just like, no, not that. So I think that means it's a great name. So I might be joining him later on with some activities. We'll see. It's a possibility. But regardless of whether I join him, he's entertaining. He's a good streamer. He's just starting out. Got about 20 or so followers. So, yeah, if you're looking for more people to follow, there you go. But yeah, we're on what page? After this chapter is done, we'll be on book 15, and we'll be 250 pages of the way through. And how many pages would we have left here? There are 430 pages. 50, 30 is 80, 180 pages left. Okay, so 250 out of 430, 180 left. So we'll go ahead and read this last chapter of the day. Book 14. Nestor meets with the wounded Argive leaders. Now the cry of battle did not escape Nestor's notice, even as he was drinking, and he spoke winged words to Machaon. Son of Asclepius, think what we should do. The warriors' shouts grow louder by the ships. Sit there and drink your red wine, while blonde Hecamede heats a warm bath to wash the blood clots from your wound, while I find a vantage point to see what passes. So saying, Nestor grasped a fine shield of gleaming bronze, lying in the hut, which belonged to horse-taming Thrasmedes, his son, who had borrowed his father's shield instead. Then he took up a sturdy spear with a sharp bronze tip, and leaving the hut was promptly witness to a shameful sight, the Greeks in full rout, and the brave Trojans pressing towards them. The Achaean wall was breached. As the wide sea heaves darkly with a soundless swell, vaguely presaging the swift passage of some strident blast, yet its waves roll neither forward nor aslant until Zeus sends a steady gale. So the old man pondered deeply, his thoughts in conflict, as to whether to join the swift Danaan charioteers, or go and find King Agamemnon. That course at last he concluded was best. As he reflected, the warriors still fought and killed, and the unyielding bronze rang round them, as they thrust at one another with swords and double-edged spears. Nestor then encountered a group of wounded generals as they came from the ships, warriors beloved of Zeus, all of whom had been hurt by the bronze blades: Diomedes, Odysseus, and Atreus' son Agamemnon. Their ships, their ships were beached on the gray sea's shore, furthest from the fighting, drawn up on the sand closest to the waves, while a wall had been built to encircle the front line. For though the bay was wide, there was little enough room, and the fleet was confined, so they had beached the ships in rows, filling the wide mouth of the bay shut in by headlands. Now the generals, each leaning on a spear for support, were going to view the state of battle and the war, grieved by the situation. Old Nestor met them, and the sight of him far from the fighting made their hearts sink. Agamemnon spoke first. "Nestor, son of Neleus, glory of Achaea, have you too left the thick of battle? I fear mighty Hector will be as good as his word, and fulfill the threat he menaced us with, addressing his troops, that he'd not return to the city till he'd burned our ships and destroyed our army. So he spoke, and now it may come to pass, perhaps because others of the bronze-grieved Achaeans are full of anger in their hearts towards me, as Achilles is, and minded not to fight by the sterns of their ships." Nestor, the Gerenian horseman, answered, "Yes, dire things are indeed upon us, and Zeus the Thunderer himself cannot alter that now. The wall is already down, which we thought would prove an unbreakable defense for the fleet and ourselves. The enemy maintain their presence by the ships, and there's no end to the battle in sight. All order is lost in our ranks, and we Greeks are scattered, the men dying amidst confusion, while their cries reach heaven. But we should consider what to do. What stratagem, if any, can help us now? I would urge you, though, not to rejoin the conflict. A wounded man is no use in a fight." King Agamemnon replied, "Nestor, since the fighting has reached the ships, and the wall and trench have failed to protect the fleet or us, despite all our efforts, then I conclude it's the will of Almighty Zeus that we Greeks find a nameless end here, far from Argos. I felt it even when he helped us, and more so now when he grants the enemy glory, just as he grants it to the sacred gods and constrains our force of arms. Let us do as I suggest, and drag the rear rank of ships down to the sea, and launch them on the glittering waves, and moor them to anchor stones in the bay till deathless night falls, when even these Trojans should break off the fight. Then we might launch the remaining ships, for there is no shame in avoiding ruin even by night. Better to flee and save ourselves than be taken." Odysseus reproaches Agamemnon. Wily Odysseus, angered at this, glared at Agamemnon. "What wretched talk is this, son of Atreus? You should have cowards to command and not rule us, whom Zeus fated to twist the black threads of war, till we die, every man of us. Are you really so keen to forego this broad-paved city of Troy we've toiled for so long? Silence, lest others hear what no man of understanding or sense of rightness would allow his lips to utter, least of all a sceptred king, obeyed by so vast a force as this army. I scorn the thoughts you speak aloud, suggesting we launch our benched ships in the midst of fierce battle, and so ensure a Trojan victory, which is almost in their grasp already, thus ruining us completely. The men will not fight on once they see the ships dragged to the sea, but distracted they'll retreat from the front. So will your counsel prove our destruction, O leader of armies?" Agamemnon, lord of men, answered him, "Odysseus, such harsh reproach pains my heart. I would not urge a single Achaean to launch his ship against his will. Let some other offer better counsel. From young or old it will be welcome." At this, Diomedes of the loud war cry spoke up. "That man is here. No need to seek him, if you will truly listen and not resent the youngest among you. I too come of a noble father, Tydeus, whom Theban earth now covers. 3 peerless sons had Portheus. In Pleuron and rugged Calydon they lived. They were Agrius, Melas, and the horseman Oeneus, my grandfather, bravest of the 3. My father Tydeus, leaving that land behind, wandered to Argos and settled there, by the will of Zeus and the other gods, I think. He married one of Adrastus' daughters and lived well, owning many a wheat field, many an orchard round about, and vast flocks of sheep as well. He was a spearman surpassing all the Greeks. You know yourselves whether I speak true. So you can't claim I come of a weak or cowardly race, and so despise whatever of sense I say. This is it. We must visit the field, wounded as we are, but avoid the conflict and keep out of range of missiles, lest we are wounded again. From there we can urge the men to battle, even those who feel resentment and choose not to fight. They heard him courteously and acceded. Then they set off, led by King Agamemnon. Hera borrows Aphrodite's belt. Aphrodite? Poseidon, the great earth shaker, was aware of all this, and disguised as an old man, went after them. He took hold of Agamemnon's right hand and spoke to him in winged words. Son of Atreus, no doubt Achilles' cruel heart rejoices to see the Achaeans put to flight and slaughtered, lacking sense as he does. Let him perish then. May the gods destroy him. But the gods who are blessed are not utterly against you, and I foresee even now that the Trojan princes and their generals will soon fill the wide plain to Troy with dust, and you will see them run for the city from your ships and huts. With this, Poseidon sped over the plain and gave a great cry, as loud as 10,000 warriors when they clash in battle. Such was the force of that call from the great earth-shaker's voice and throat, and he stirred the hearts of the Achaeans and filled with them strength to fight on to the end. Now Hera, of the golden throne, saw Poseidon, who was both her brother and brother-in-law, from the heights of Olympus, as he rushed about the field where men win glory, and she rejoiced. But she saw Zeus, too, seated on the topmost peak of Ida, of the many streams, whose actions angered her. Then the ox-eyed queen thought how she might distract aegis-bearing Zeus from the war, and this idea seemed best. To go to Ida, beautifully arrayed, to see if he could be tempted to clasp her in his arms and lie with her. Then she might clothe his eyes and cunning mind in warm and gentle sleep. She therefore went to the room fashioned for her by her dear son Hephaestus, with its strong doors fitted to the doorposts, and its hidden bolt no other god could open. She entered and closed the gleaming doors behind her. Then she cleansed every mark from her lovely body with rich and gentle ambrosial oil, deeply fragrant. If its scent was released in Zeus's palace, whose threshold was of bronze, it would spread through heaven and earth. With this she anointed her shapely form, then combed her hair, and with her own 2 hands plaited the lovely glistening ambrosial tresses that flowed from her immortal head. Then she clothed herself in an ambrosial robe that Athene had worked smooth and skillfully embroidered, fastening it over her breast with golden clasps, and at her waist with 100-tasseled belt. She fixed an earring, a gracefully gleaming triple-dropped cluster in each pierced lobe, then covered her head in a beautiful shining veil, glistening bright as the sun, and bound fine sandals on her shining feet. When her body was all adorned, she left her room, calling Aphrodite to her from her place with the other gods, saying, "Will you favor a request, dear child, or will you refuse, resenting the help I give the Greeks since you aid the Trojans?" "Hera, honored goddess, daughter of mighty Kronos," replied Aphrodite, Zeus's daughter. "Tell me your wish. My heart prompts me to grant it if it is in my power." Poseidon is loud AF, that's true. He is the earth shaker. Then Queen Hera spoke deceptively. "Grant me love and desire with which you subdue mortals and gods alike. I am off to the ends of fruitful earth to visit Oceanus, source of all the gods, and Mother Tethys, They nursed and cherished me lovingly in their halls after taking me from Rhea, when far-echoing Zeus imprisoned Kronos beneath the earth and restless sea. I will visit them and bring their ceaseless quarrel to an end. They have been estranged for a long time now, from love and the marriage bed, ever since their hearts were embittered. If I could persuade a change of heart, and bring them to sleep together once more, I would be dear to them and win their true esteem. Laughter-loving Aphrodite replied, It would be wrong for me to refuse you, since you sleep in almighty Zeus's embrace. And she loosed from her breast that inlaid belt of hers, in which all manner of seductions lurk, love, desire, and dalliance, persuasiveness that robs even the wise of sense. Placing it in Hera's hands, she said, Take this inlaid belt of curious fashioning, and keep it at your breast. Whatever your heart desires, you will return successful. Ox-eyed Queen Hera smiled at her words, and smiling took the belt to her breast. Hera visits Sleep and asks his help. Aphrodite, daughter of Zeus, returned to her house, but Hera darted from the summit of Olympus to Pieria and lovely Amathia, skimming the snowy hills of the Thracian horsemen, not touching the slopes with her feet. From Athos she stepped to the billowing waves, and so crossed to Lemnos, the island and the city of godlike Thoas. There she sought out Sleep, the brother of Death, took him by the hand, and asked his help. Sleep, master of gods and men, if ever you answered a request of mine, do what I ask you now, and I will always owe you thanks. As soon as I lie down in Zeus's arms, close his gleaming eyes in slumber, and I will give you a fine throne of everlasting gold that my son, the lame god Hephaestus, will fashion with all his skill, and a stool as well where you can rest your shining feet when you sip your wine. Do this for me, and I will make my lame and ugly son do anything you want. Sweet Sleep answered, Oh, great goddess Hera, daughter of mighty Kronos, it would be nothing to lull to sleep some other of the immortals, even the streams of ocean from whom you all descend. But I dare not approach Zeus and do so, unless he tells me to. I learned that once before, on a task of yours, that day when proud Heracles, his glorious son, sailed from Ilium after sacking Troy. I shed sweetness all around to distract aegis-bearing Zeus, while you planned mischief for his son, rousing the harsh winds to a gale, and driving him far from his comrades to many-peopled Kos. When Zeus woke, he was angry. He treated you immortals roughly and sought for me above all, and if Night, who subdues God and men, hadn't saved me, he'd have hurled me from heaven into the depths, never to be seen again. I ran to her, and though Zeus was wrathful, he'd restrained himself, hesitating to offend swift Night. And now you make the same unacceptable demand. Ox-eyed Queen Hera answered, Sleep, why worry about it so? Do you really think far-echoing Zeus will show the same anger for these Trojans as he did for the sake of Heracles, his son? Come, I will give you one of the young Graces in marriage. Sleep, delighted by her words, said, Well then, swear to me now by the inviolable waters of Styx, with one hand on the fertile earth, one on the shimmering sea, so that all the gods with Kronos down below may bear witness, that you will grant me one of the young Graces, Pasithea, whom I've longed for all my days. The goddess, white-armed Hera, agreed, and swore the oath as he asked, naming all the gods beneath Tartarus, called Titans. When she had duly sworn, they left Lemnos, then Imbros behind, and clothed in mist, sped swiftly on their way. They soon reached Ida of the many streams, mother of wild creatures, by way of Lectum, where they left the sea and crossed the land, the forest crowns quivering beneath their feet. Sleep halted then, before Zeus could see him, and settled on the tallest fir tree on Ida, one that pierced the mists and reached the sky. There he sat, hidden by its branches, in the form of a clear-voiced mountain bird called Chalcis by the gods, Semendis by men. Hera and Zeus make love. Pardon me, I'm oh so thirsty now. Meanwhile, Hera soon reached Gargarus, the summit of lofty Ida. I'm gonna mess both of them. I'm gonna mess that up every time. Zeus, the cloud driver, saw her, and instantly his sharp mind was overwhelmed by longing, as in the days when they first found love, sleeping together without their dear parents' knowledge. These are siblings, by the way, just in case you forgot. Standing there, he called to her, "Hera, what brings you speeding from Olympus? And where are your chariot and horses?" Queen Hera replied artfully, "Oh, I am off to the ends of fruitful earth, to visit Oceanus, source of all the gods, and Mother Tethys. They nursed and cherished me lovingly in their halls. I will visit them and bring their ceaseless quarrel to an end. They have been estranged for a long time now, from love and the marriage bed, ever since their hearts were embittered. My horses wait at the foot of Ida of many streams, and they will take me over dry land and sea. But I am here from Olympus to see you, lest you harbor anger towards me later if I go to deep-flowing Oceanus' house without first telling you." Zeus, the cloud driver, answered, "Hera, you shall go later. But for now let us taste the joys of love, for never has such a desire for goddess or mortal woman so gripped and overwhelmed my heart, not even when I was seized by love for Ixion's wife, who gave birth to Perithous, the god's rival in wisdom, or for Acrisius' daughter, slim-ankled Danae, who bore Perseus, greatest of warriors, or for the far-famed daughter of Phoenix, who gave me Minos and godlike Rhadamanthus, or for Semele, mother of Dionysus, who brings men joy, or for Alcmene at Thebes, whose son was lion-hearted Heracles, or for Demeter of the lovely tresses, or for glorious Leto, or even for you yourself, as this love and sweet desire for you grips me now. Hera, I've never been hornier than right now, not even for the 7 other women besides you I slept with." He started out great, and he fumbled a bit. Queen Hera replied artfully once more, "O dread son of Kronos, what words are these? You indeed may be eager to make love on the heights of Ida in broad daylight. But what if an immortal saw us together and told the others? I'd be ashamed to rise again and go home. But if you really wish for love, if your heart is set on it, you have that room your dear son Hephaestus built you, with solid, tightly fitting doors. Let us go and lie there, since love-making is your wish." "Hera, have no fear. No god or man will see us through the golden cloud in which I will hide us. Not even Helios could spy us then, though his is the keenest sight of all." With that, the son of Kronos took his wife in his arms, and beneath them the bright earth sent up fresh grass shoots, dewy lotus, crocus, and soft-clustered hyacinth, to cushion them from the ground. There they lay, veiled by the cloud, lovely and golden, from which fell glistening drops of dew. Poseidon urges on the Greeks. Okay, we did about 3 sections of this chapter was about how they're going to get it on, and now we're back to the fighting. So Father Zeus, conquered by love and sleep, lay peacefully on Gargarus with his wife in his arms, while sweet sleep sped off to the Argive ships to give the news to Poseidon, earth-shaker and enfolder. Reaching him, he spoke with winged words. "Zeus is sleeping now, Poseidon. Hera tempted him to sleep with her, and I have drowned him in sweet slumber. So go and help the Argives quickly. Grant them glory before he wakes." So saying, he sped away to mortal men, while Poseidon redoubled his efforts, rushing to the front with a great cry. "Greeks, shall we yield to Hector, son of Priam? Let him take the fleet and win glory. He boasts that he will, now that Achilles sits by the hollow ships with anger in his heart. Yet if we rouse ourselves and support each other, we can win without Achilles. Come now and do what I suggest. Let us cover our heads with our gleaming helms, sling on the best and largest shields we have, grasp the longest spears, and then advance. I will lead, and I doubt that noble Hector will stand against us long, for all his eagerness. Now, any of you with a small shield who knows how to fight, give it to a weaker man and take a large one." They heard him out and readily obeyed. And, wounded as they were, the leaders Diomedes, Odysseus, and Agamemnon marshaled their men. Combing the ranks, they made sure armor was exchanged, the better warriors taking the better gear, the weaker men the worse. Then, having clad their bodies in gleaming bronze, the army advanced, Poseidon the Earthshaker in the lead, clasping a fearful long sword in his vast hand, like a lightning flash. No man may face him in a fight, so great the terror. Meanwhile, noble Hector was marshalling the Trojans opposite. Then indeed the sinews of war were strained in mortal strife, dark-haired Poseidon urging on the Greeks, noble Hector the Trojans. As the sea surged towards the Greek ships and huts, the two sides met with a deafening clamor. That cry of the Greeks and Trojans as they clashed was louder than the crash of breaking waves, raised from the deep and driven on shore by the fierce blast of a northerly gale, louder than the roar of a forest fire blazing in the mountains, or the howl of the wind at its height in the summits of tall oak trees. Hello, CMB. Welcome. Get cozy. Ajax wounds Hector. Noble Hector first cast his spear at Ajax as he faced him, but his well-directed throw struck him where the straps of his shield and silver-studded sword met across the chest, protecting the tender flesh. Hector was angered at his swift missile's failure, and he turned back into the ranks, dodging fate. But, as he retreated, Telamonian Ajax the mighty warrior picked up one of the many boulders rolling about his feet, used to prop the ships, and struck Hector on the chest below the neck, over the rim of the shield, and sent him spinning like a top from the blow. Like an oak uprooted, with a dreadful reek of sulphur, by a lightning strike from Father Zeus, so terrifying that it unnerves the bystander, mighty Hector toppled in the dust. His other spear fell from his hand, his shield and helmet weighed on him, and his bronze-inlaid armor rang about him. Then the sons of Achaea rushed towards him with loud cries, launching a shower of javelins, hoping to drag him away, but none was swift enough to wound the Trojan leader further, with thrust or cast of spear, since he was quickly surrounded by the foremost warriors, Polydamas, Aeneas, noble Agenor, Sarpedon, the Lycian leader, and peerless Glaucus. The rest were concerned to aid him too, making a wall of their round shields and lifting him in their arms. His comrades carried him from the fray to his swift horses, waiting at the rear beyond the battle lines, where his charioteer had halted the inlaid chariot. In this he was carried, groaning heavily, towards the city. But when they reached the ford of the eddying river, noble Xanthus, child of immortal Zeus, they lifted him to the ground and poured water over him. He came to, opened his eyes, and getting to his knees, vomited black blood. Then he sank back on the ground, his eyes shrouded in darkness, still vanquished in spirit by the blow. Now when the Greeks saw Hector depart, they fell on the Trojans more fiercely, eager to do battle. Fleet-footed Ajax, son of Oileus, was first to draw blood, attacking Satnius, son of Enops, stepping in close, wounding him in the flank with a thrust from his sharp spear. Satnius was born to his father Enops by a peerless Naiad, as Enops tended his herds by the banks of Satnioeus. Now he fell backward, and the Greeks and Trojans fought a fierce battle over his body. Polydamas the spearman, son of Panthos, ran in to protect it, and struck Prothoenor, son of Aurelius, in the right shoulder, the spear passing through, so that he fell clutching the earth. Polydamas gave a triumphant cry. Once more the spear leaps from the hand of Panthos' proud son and finds its mark. Argive flesh receives it, and this Greek can use it as a staff, I think, as it goes to the house of Hades. It takes a while for them to get there, but there are some very savage lines that people yell when they kill somebody. Like, hit somebody in the chest or something with a spear and kill them, and you're like, there you go, a staff for you to get around Hades with. Ha 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 ha. Ajax wreaks havoc. His rejoicing pained the Greeks, none more so than fierce Ajax, son of Telamon, who was closest when Prothoenor fell. Swiftly he flung his gleaming spear at Polydamas as he drew back. The man escaped certain death, springing aside, but the spear was destined by the gods to strike Archilochus, Antenor's son. It hit where head and neck are joined, at the apex of the spine, and sheared through the sinews. His face and head touched earth before his thighs and knees. Now it was Ajax who cried aloud to Polydamas, "What think you, Polydamas? Tell me, is this death not worthy of Prothoenor, the man who looked noble enough, of decent lineage, the very likeness indeed of that horse-tamer Antenor, his brother perhaps, or his son?" He spoke, well knowing who the warrior was, and grief filled Trojan hearts. Acamas straddled his brother's corpse, and with a spear thrust struck Promachus, the Boeotian, who was trying to drag the body by its feet from beneath him. He gave a dreadful shout. "You Argives, free with your arrows and your threats, look now! The effort and the pain will not be ours alone. You too will die some day like this. Your Promachus sleeps, conquered by my spear, swift payment in blood for my brothers. For this a man prays, for a kinsman to survive him and save the line from destruction." His boasting pained the Argives, none more so than fierce Peneleos. He ran at Acamas, but the man gave ground, and Peneleos' thrust struck Ilioneus, son of the wealthy Phorbas, owner of herds, whom Hermes loved and made richest of the Trojans, yet whose wife had borne him Ilioneus alone. Peneleos struck at the eye, and the shaft forced out the eyeball and pierced the socket, exiting at the nape of the neck. Ilioneus collapsed, stretching out his arms, but Peneleos drew his keen sword, swung at the neck, and struck off the helmeted head, the spear still lodged there in the eye socket. Then, holding it aloft like a poppy head, he thrust it towards the Trojans in triumph. "Grant me this favor, Trojans. Tell noble Ilioneus' dear parents to start the loud lament in their halls, for neither shall the wife of Algenor's son Promachus delight in her dear husband's return when we sons of Achaea sail home from the land of Troy." Every man trembled at his words, and looked to see how he himself might escape death's dark finality. Tell me now, muses who live in Olympus, when Poseidon the great earth-shaker turned the tide of battle, who was the first Achaean to carry off the spoils, the blood-stained armor? Ajax the Great it was, the son of Telamon. He killed Heretius, brave leader of Mysians, son of Gyrtius, while Antilochus stripped Phalcus and Mermerus of their lives, as Meriones slew Morus and Hippotion, and Teucer felled Pruthun and Periphetus. Menelaus too caught Hyperenor, prince among men, with a thrust in the flank from his bronze blade, piercing the gut, and Hyperenor's spirit fled swift from the mortal wound, while darkness shrouded his eyes. But a larger number died at the hands of Ajax the Lesser, son of Oileus, for there was none like him at chasing down fleeing men, whom Zeus had first spurred to fight. And that is the end of Book 14. Things are getting a little crazy. Okay. And that's going to be the end of the reading. We're going to spend 5 minutes here cooling down, saying hello to everybody, thanking everybody for joining the stream, for sticking around for as long as you have. I really do appreciate it. A few quick words as we're winding down here. And I'll go ahead and switch back over to this since the reading is done. So, as I said in the beginning of the stream, but for anybody who joined me now, uh, I'm going to try to get back into the old schedule that I had, which was Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. It's going to be at slightly different times. As you can see, it used to be from 6 to 8 typically, or 6 to whenever I felt like stopping. Right now, we're going to look at starting around 4 and going usually to 6 or 7. I like to keep the reading streams to about 2 hours to, give my throat a rest here. Give the voice a rest. But yeah, about 4 to 7, or they can go a little bit longer, depending on how I'm feeling, how people in the chat are feeling, what we want to do, that kind of thing, So I feel like it's been about 3 months since I've returned to that form. Thank you, HP, once again for that. But we're going to return to everything that we were working on. So Sundays, we're reading the Illiad. We're, I'd say about 60% of the way through now. We're at page 250 out of, 430. So we've gotten at least a good halfway through. And then on Mondays, we're either going to, this was always a difficult one. I had Mahjong Mondays set up, so I would be playing Mahjong typically for a few hours. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays were me playing my RPG of the week, whatever that would be. And it started with Hollow Knight, then was Bioshock 1, and now we're halfway through about Bioshock 2. So hopefully on Tuesday we'll be playing Bioshock 2 again, or I'll play it tomorrow if we're not feeling the Mahjong. And then Friday is a free day. It's typically whatever I want, whatever chat wants. People want a poll or anything like that. So I would need to... I really need to set up a Discord so that people can, interact more easily. We can set up polls or things about what people want to see out of the channel, what people like and don't like, etc. Some good feedback is nice. I know everybody has a Discord and everybody's in a Discord and all that stuff, so naturally you don't have to join if you don't want to. But it's still a good idea for me to have one, just in general. So I should probably get on that eventually. But yeah, that's basically what I wanted to say with regards to the streams, with regards to the schedule. Other streams could end up happening. I know a lot of people, there are a lot of people that I like to collaborate with, that I like to stream into, stream with, all that kind of thing. So it'll be dependent on that as well. But yeah, again, thank you all for joining me. I really appreciate it. If anybody has anything that they wanted to say, it was really nice to come here and read, because it's something I haven't been able to do for a long time, and it's something I finally got into doing. And I had a very busy day at work, and that's kind of why I'm still in the scrubs. And that was I didn't expect it to be Sunday that would be the busiest day. I've worked a Sunday before, it wasn't nearly as busy, but it was very much just head down the entire time. For the full 6 hours, I did not really I got my 15-minute break and that was it. It was just head down working. But it also felt really good to not I didn't feel like I was slowing down in the process. I felt like I was finally reaching a point where the steps were becoming more automated, not necessarily lifeless or thoughtless or anything like that, but it was I knew I was doing a thing And as I was doing it, I was like, I know what I'm doing next. And, it's taken 2 weeks, but we're finally there. I want to say I love you, and your sultry voice gives me life. Blake, I appreciate that. Thanks for popping in to say that. It makes me happy. Hi, Keaton. Hi, K-Dude. We've got a friend, Calta Ritter. Are you... Yeah, you're taking a quick break. Dinner break. Oh, see you at 7. Okay. Hell yeah. Excellent. All right. I love to see my mans thriving. Well, thank you. I do appreciate that, really. You're going to jump back on? Enjoy the rest of your stream, bud. I'll keep you updated in that Discord. But yeah, it was really nice. What I'm basically trying to say, it was really nice to be able to come back from like a very busy, just like tireless work day to being able to sit down and relax with all of you and read again. I haven't been able to read in a long time. I think I've learned my lesson about the Greek tragedies and histories and things like that. I did not remember them being nearly as... I wouldn't say wordy, because I knew they were long, but I didn't remember them being just like so, and then we listened to this person give a speech, and then we describe in every simile and metaphor known to man how this person died or how this person acted and where this person came from. And good luck trying to remember all the names, etc. So I think after the Iliad and the Odyssey, we'll probably stay away from those. But we have a nice Sherlock Holmes book to get to after that. So once we're through the Iliad, we'll read the Odyssey and then Sherlock Holmes. And then we'll figure out where to go from there. But yeah, basically, if you have suggestions for this stream, especially for the Sunday streams, for books to read, as long as they are in public domain, they're fair game, right? So I can't really read unless like I somehow sit down with either at this point it'd have to be like a young burgeoning author who is like, yeah, read it, and to get some like traction, help get some traction going. It wouldn't be much traction, but it would be, me reading it to a small audience and, gauging interest and all that. But that's about it. I can't read, like wouldn't be able to read stuff like, what's his name that's been making like 8 million books, and he's got that Kickstarter going for like a full year. I don't remember his name. I'm blanking. But he did the Stormlight Archive and stuff like that. I can't believe I'm blanking, but if anybody knows, you know. The Red-Headed League was a shorter Sherlock Holmes one that I enjoyed. The Red-Headed League. Well, we're doing a study in Scarlet, if you've read that one. But I will keep an eye out for the Red-Headed League in case the Sherlock Holmes book goes over well. That would be nice, because that was a recommendation by my roommate to read a Sherlock Holmes book, and then she said a study in Scarlet would be good. So that's what I went with as a follow-up to this, and then this has taken much longer than I expected it to, and not just because of how long of a book and how hard it is to get through at some points. But yes, I've been repeating myself, but it's been great. It's been a lot of fun coming back to reading, hanging out, relaxing, etc. It's been nice. It's been very nice. If you want a hard book, but one that has some cadence, The Epic of Gilgamesh. The Epic of Gilgamesh. I see. Yeah, I want to read epics. I'm just incredibly worried about them turning into another Iliad or Odyssey. I think I'd have to scan the Epic of Gilgamesh first. Just because, like, especially the copy of the book that I were to get. Like, I'm never buying a much older book like this without checking the translation. Because, I mean, this book looks nice. It's not, I don't like it. I don't like how it's written. The sire of gods and men had pity on him and looked fiercely on Juno. I see Juno, said he, you mischief-making trickster, that your cunning has stayed Hector from fighting and has caused the rout of his host. I am in half a mind to thrash you, in which case you will be the first to reap the fruits of your scurvy knavery. Do you not remember how once upon a time I had you hanged? Scurvy knavery. His armor fell, and his armor rang, and he fell, his armor ringing round him. Just a lot of memes with that. You have a hard copy you'd lend me with annotations? Oh, so it would be like a nice little Shakespeare book where I'd get to be like, oh, what does that mean on the side? You got to translate what you said on the opposite page. Well, I will consider it. It'll be a long time before we have a next book picked out, obviously. But, yeah, all things to be considered. And like I said, I need to get a Discord set up so that people can make like a list of suggestions, and then we can like maybe even make polls for like, what do you want to hear next? And we'll eventually get through the list, hopefully, all the way through. But yeah. But yeah. Now I guess it's really just what do I want to do? Doc, stop streaming. All right, let's do this. I'm just doing this for fun. Why not? It's hilarious. She usually raids me with like 70 people. This is one of the few times I've had the opportunity to actually raid her after a stream of mine. So yeah, let's do it. It'll be funny. Her viewership won't change because the majority of y'all are probably from there or from other Deathflower streams. So yeah. But also, I don't quite know how to shout out, I don't think. I might be joining my friend Call to Ritter later in his stream. So there's the shout out there. I mentioned it earlier. But yeah. He's doing a long stream. He's like halfway to affiliate. Give him some love if you want to. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun, like I said. Thank you so much for joining me. And hopefully, I'll see you tomorrow.